It started like any other evening, the kind that carries no warning, before it quietly changes everything. Alex hadn't seen Sarah in years. Not since those long college nights filled with laughter and reckless dreams. When she walked into that work event, confidence wrapped around her like perfume, and suddenly, time folded in on itself. She wasn't just an old friend anymore. She was a living echo of something he didn't realize he missed. Their eyes met, and the world hushed, as if granting them a private space in the middle of the crowd. They talked like people who had never lost touch, every word flowing effortlessly, brushing over years as if they were just hours. Sarah's voice had the same warmth, steady, yet alive with curiosity, and Alex felt the past and present tangle inside him. The music around them softened into background noise, while their laughter took center stage. Every accidental touch, every shared glance carried that quiet electricity that speaks louder than confessions. It wasn't just nostalgia, it was something reborn. Then, Tiffany appeared, a spark in human form. She moved with the kind of energy that made everyone notice, her laughter bold and contagious. Sarah introduced her as her closest friend, and the moment Tiffany's gaze met Alex's, something unspoken clicked. It wasn't comparison, it was contrast. Where Sarah was calm and centered, Tiffany was light and movement, untamed and free. And suddenly, the night felt like a door had opened to somewhere neither of them had planned to go. The night spilled over into laughter and music, the kind that loosens inhibitions and makes even strangers feel like old friends. They found themselves in a cozy bar after the event, neon lights painting soft colors over their faces. Sarah sat close, her hand brushing Alex's arm now and then, not deliberate but not accidental either. Tiffany danced by the jukebox, twirling like she owned the moment, like the world existed only to echo her rhythm. And Alex, somewhere between the two, felt his heartbeat sync with both, calm and chaos intertwined. There was something magnetic in the air, something that made the ordinary feel charged. Sarah's gaze lingered a little longer each time he spoke, while Tiffany's teasing glances carried a spark of daring. They joked, shared stories, and somewhere in the mix, emotional boundaries began to blur. It wasn't lust alone, it was connection, that invisible thread that makes people lean in just a bit closer without meaning to. Alex laughed, but deep down, he knew this was no simple reunion. Something was unfolding. As the hours slipped away, the city outside seemed distant, almost unreal. Inside that dimly lit space, everything felt suspended: time, logic, restraint. Sarah leaned in to whisper something. Her breath brushed his ear, soft and familiar. Tiffany caught the moment and smiled, a knowing curve of her lips that made his pulse stumble. It wasn't jealousy, it was awareness, a shared silent understanding that something rare was happening, and none of them could pretend they didn't feel it. Later that night, as they stepped out into the cool air, the laughter softened, replaced by a comfortable quiet. Streetlights flickered against the wet pavement, casting reflections that danced around their feet. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself, and Alex instinctively offered his jacket, a small gesture, yet one that carried warmth beyond words. Tiffany watched the exchange with a glint of curiosity, half smiling, half reading something deeper between them. It wasn't rivalry, she felt, but intrigue, the kind that pulls you closer to the edge just to see what's beyond. They walked together, shoulders brushing, hearts unsteady. Sarah spoke of how life had changed, the long hours, the loneliness that sometimes crept in despite success. Alex listened, truly listened, his chest tightening with a feeling he hadn't expected to return. Then Tiffany's voice joined in, vibrant and unfiltered, challenging every quiet truth Sarah had just confessed. She laughed about love being too big for boxes, too wild for definitions. Her words lingered in the air, daring them to imagine something different. By the time they said goodnight, nothing felt the same. Alex lay awake later, the echoes of their voices replaying in his mind like a song he couldn't turn off. Two women, one familiar, one utterly new, and a feeling that defied logic. He didn't know what to call it yet, only that it was growing. And somewhere deep inside, a question began to take shape, one that would follow him into the days ahead and refuse to let go. In the days that followed, Sarah couldn't shake the subtle shift between them. Alex's presence lingered like a scent she couldn't name, comforting, yet unsettling. She caught herself replaying moments from that night, the laughter, the unspoken tension, the way Tiffany's eyes seemed to see right through them both. At first, she tried to rationalize it. It was just nostalgia, just old chemistry. But deep down, Sarah knew the truth. Something inside her had stirred awake. Something that both thrilled and frightened her. Alex felt it too. Every message from Sarah carried warmth, yet behind her words, he sensed hesitation, as if she was fighting a question she didn't dare ask. And then there was Tiffany. Her texts were bolder, playful, dripping with mischief. She didn't tiptoe around attraction. She danced through it. When she suggested they all meet again, Alex hesitated only for a moment. Curiosity won. The thought of being near them, both of them, was a temptation wrapped in confusion and desire. That evening, when they met for dinner, everything was charged, electric in the quietest ways. Sarah's smile trembled at the corners. Tiffany's confidence was like gravity, pulling them both in. The air between the three felt thick, full of things unsaid. Over candlelight and low music, conversations wandered dangerously close to confession. Sarah's hand brushed Alex's under the table, and Tiffany noticed, her lips curving, her eyes softening in something that wasn't jealousy, but acknowledgement. The truth was inching closer to the surface, waiting for someone to give it a voice. It happened slowly, like a confession wrapped in hesitation. Tiffany was the first to break the silence that had been stretching thin all night. "You two?" she said, her tone half teasing, half sincere. "There's something between you that feels unfinished." The words hung in the air, bold yet strangely gentle. Sarah froze, torn between the urge to deny and the need to admit. Alex looked at her, really looked, and in that instant, the truth needed no language. The space between them pulsed with everything left unsaid. Sarah's heart raced, not from shame, but from the weight of honesty. She could feel her pulse in her fingertips, in the tremor of her breath. "You're not wrong," she whispered finally, eyes glancing from Tiffany to Alex. There was no anger in her voice, only confusion and courage woven together. Tiffany didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned closer, her expression softening. "Attraction isn't something we choose," she said. "Sometimes it just happens." Her words were a mirror Sarah didn't expect to face. The night deepened, and so did the air between them. Candles flickered as if reacting to their unease. Alex tried to speak, but language felt too small for what was happening. He wanted to explain, to justify, but how do you define a feeling that doesn't fit any rule you've known? Sarah's hand trembled slightly on the table. Tiffany reached across, not to claim, not to challenge, but to steady her. And in that brief touch, that quiet human moment, something shifted from confusion to connection. Sarah sat in silence for a long moment, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. The room felt smaller, the air denser, as if the truth they'd spoken had changed its shape. She could feel Alex's eyes on her, searching for answers she didn't yet have. Then, quietly, almost to herself, she said, "What if love doesn't have to be just one thing?" The words fell between them like a spark, fragile yet powerful. Tiffany's gaze lifted instantly, curious, unafraid. Alex's heartbeat stumbled, caught between disbelief and desire. Tiffany tilted her head, studying Sarah with that bold calm she always carried. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" she asked, voice steady but eyes glinting with surprise. Sarah's breath hitched. She didn't look away. "Maybe love can stretch," she said softly. "Maybe it's not about choosing one person, but being honest about what we feel." The idea sounded impossible, and yet, for all three of them, it made a strange, unsettling kind of sense. There was freedom in it, and danger too. Alex looked at them both, caught in the storm of his own emotions. It wasn't lust anymore. It was the terrifying beauty of something real, something uncharted. He saw fear in Sarah's eyes, fire in Tiffany's, and his own reflection somewhere in between. "If we do this," he said finally, his voice low, "we do it with honesty." Tiffany nodded, Sarah exhaled, and in that fragile agreement, a new story began. One they didn't yet understand, but couldn't walk away from. In the weeks that followed, their world changed quietly, not with grand declarations, but with touches that lingered longer than they should. The first time the three of them were truly alone, the air itself seemed to hum with anticipation. It wasn't wild or reckless. It was tender, deliberate, full of nervous laughter and hesitant smiles. They were stepping into something none of them had a name for. Every glance felt like a promise, every heartbeat a confession, and when their hands finally met, it felt less like rebellion and more like truth. There was joy in those early days, the kind that comes from breaking free of invisible chains. They explored each other's worlds, shared lazy afternoons, late-night talks, small jokes that only made sense to the three of them. For a while, It felt easy, natural even, as if they had found a secret rhythm that belonged only to them. Sarah, with her quiet tenderness, Tiffany, with her bold laughter, Alex, trying to hold it all together. Theirs was a strange harmony, fragile but intoxicating, like walking on air that could vanish at any step. But beneath the laughter lived something heavier, a shadow that followed them quietly. Alex felt it first. In the still moments after joy, he would watch Sarah as she slept, her calm face barely hiding the questions that haunted her. Tiffany, though outwardly fearless, carried her own unease, masked by her radiant smile. They were bound by love, yes, but also by the awareness that the world outside their fragile circle wouldn't understand. It wasn't just a relationship anymore, it was a secret they had to protect. At first, Alex tried to quiet the noise in his head, the small voice that whispered he was playing with something too delicate to last. He told himself love was love, no matter its shape, but the world had taught him otherwise. Every time someone asked about his love life, he stumbled over answers. Was he proud, ashamed, confused? Maybe all at once. He watched Sarah's calm demeanor fade in certain moments, replaced by an almost invisible tension. Tiffany noticed too, though she never said a word. She simply smiled brighter, laughed louder, as if to drown the unease. Sarah's struggle ran deeper than she admitted. She had built her life around control, every detail, every plan, neatly aligned. Now, love had become something unpredictable, something she couldn't measure or manage. Some nights she lay awake, tracing the outline of Alex's hand against her own, wondering if she was losing a part of herself or discovering something new. She adored Tiffany's energy, admired her freedom, but sometimes that freedom felt like a mirror reflecting her own fears. How much could she give before she disappeared inside it? Tiffany, on the other hand, carried her strength like armor, fearless in public, but fragile in private. Behind every daring smile was a flicker of doubt. What if they tire of me? What if I'm only here because I make them brave enough to break the rules? She'd grown used to being misunderstood, but this was different. This love felt real, and that made it dangerous. It wasn't the world's judgment that scared her. It was the thought of being left out of something she had helped create. And though none of them said it aloud, all three felt that quiet ache, the one that comes when love and fear begin to intertwine. One evening, rain whispered against the windows as they sat together in quiet reflection. No laughter this time, no teasing words, just the gentle hum of connection. Tiffany rested her head on Alex's shoulder, while Sarah's hand lingered in his. It wasn't about passion in that moment. It was about belonging, the fragile kind that people spend lifetimes searching for. They didn't speak much, but each of them knew this silence mattered. It was an unspoken promise. Whatever comes, we face it together. Alex finally broke the quiet, his voice low and steady. "People won't understand," he said, staring at the rain sliding down the glass. "But maybe they don't have to." Sarah looked up at him, her eyes soft but certain. "We know what this is," she said. "That's enough." Tiffany smiled faintly, reaching out to take Sarah's hand too, a small gesture that made the moment whole. For the first time, their connection felt grounded, not reckless. It wasn't about breaking rules anymore. It was about building something beyond them. That night they made a quiet vow, not with words, but with touch, breath, presence, a promise to protect what they'd found, even if the world called it impossible. They knew it wouldn't be easy. Love rarely is, especially when it defies expectation. But in that room, surrounded by rain and warmth, they believed they could hold it together. What they didn't see, not yet, were the tiny cracks beginning to form beneath the surface, waiting for time and truth to bring them to light. It started with small things: a look held too long, a sigh swallowed too quietly, laughter that felt slightly off-key. Sarah noticed it first. A flicker of unease whenever Alex and Tiffany shared a joke she couldn't quite follow. She told herself it was nothing, that love didn't always feel smooth, but the truth was stubborn, creeping in between stolen glances and half smiles. She loved them both, yes, but suddenly the idea of sharing him, sharing her heart, felt heavier than she expected. Tiffany sensed it too, though she approached it differently. Where Sarah's tension was quiet and brooding, Tiffany's was restless, full of subtle challenges and daring questions. She tested boundaries without admitting her own fears, daring Alex and Sarah to acknowledge the cracks she already felt. Every moment of laughter now carried a hint of caution, every touch a whisper of what could unravel if they weren't careful. She craved freedom, yet the more she felt attached, the more trapped she sometimes became. Alex tried to steady the storm, but it followed him everywhere. The guilt of loving two people, the constant weighing of emotional needs, pressed down on him in unexpected ways. He watched Sarah grow quieter, Tiffany more restless, and wondered how long this fragile balance could hold. Every night ended with soft reassurances. Every morning brought the same questions. Am I enough for both of them? Can love truly survive without rules? And in the quiet of his own heart, he knew they were approaching a turning point. It happened one evening over dinner. Casual at first, but heavy with unspoken words. Sarah's fork paused mid-air as she watched Tiffany lean closer to Alex, laughing a little too freely. A tightness crept into her chest, a feeling she couldn't name without shame. "Do you ever think about us?" she finally asked, her voice quieter than intended. Tiffany's eyes flicked to her, then to Alex, reading the tension that Sarah didn't want to admit aloud. The playful energy they had always shared had shifted, replaced by questions they couldn't easily answer. Tiffany didn't shy away. She met Sarah's gaze head-on, bold and honest. "Of course I think about it," she said softly, but firmly. "But thinking isn't the same as needing. I just care about all of us." Her words hung between them, a mixture of reassurance and challenge. Alex felt his stomach tighten, caught in the middle of two worlds, both claiming a piece of his heart. He reached for both of them, literally and emotionally, but the gesture only highlighted the delicate balance they were walking. The night stretched long, filled with quiet reflection and tentative words. Each of them understood the stakes. Their love was extraordinary, but fragile. Jealousy wasn't born from lack of affection, but from uneven needs and fears that had begun to surface. Every small action now carried weight: a look, a touch, a joke, all analyzed under the microscope of intimacy. And somewhere deep down, Alex felt it too. The realization that loving two people meant navigating not just passion, but the constant, subtle risk of heartbreak. It came to a head one rainy evening, the kind where the world outside feels distant, and only the storm inside matters. Sarah's voice trembled as she admitted what she had buried for weeks. "I don't know if I can share him forever." Her words landed like stones, each one echoing in the quiet room. Tiffany's eyes widened, not with anger, but with a mix of fear and hurt. She had always imagined freedom and attachment could coexist, but hearing Sarah's doubt made her question everything she believed about love and herself. Alex felt his chest tighten, the weight of their emotions pressing down like the storm outside. He reached for them, wanting to soothe, to promise, to somehow erase the tension, but no words could untangle the raw honesty in the air. Each confession was a mirror reflecting their own fears: fear of loss, fear of judgment, fear of being too much or too little. And yet, in the vulnerability, there was also something tender, a reminder that the bond they shared was built on more than desire. It was built on trust, even if fragile. By the end of the night, they were spent, emotionally naked and yet strangely connected. The cracks were visible, undeniable, but so was the depth of what they felt. Alex realized that the path forward wouldn't be simple, that choices would need to be made, choices that could hurt or heal. And though none of them had an answer yet, there was a quiet, unspoken understanding. Love, this intense, demanded courage, and the coming days would test whether their hearts could survive the truths they had finally voiced. The morning light spilled softly through the curtains, casting a gentle glow on the three of them. After the storm of the previous nights, there was a quiet tension in the air, heavy with unspoken questions. Alex stirred first, feeling the weight of all the choices ahead pressing against his chest. Sarah sat across from him, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee, eyes distant but steady. Tiffany leaned back, arms crossed, a mix of defiance and uncertainty in her posture. None of them spoke at first, but in the silence, their hearts were loudly confessing what words could not. They knew that the love they shared was extraordinary, but extraordinary often comes at a cost. Each of them had glimpsed their own fragility, their own boundaries, and the fear of losing one another. Sarah's gaze softened, a mix of acceptance and hesitation. "Maybe we can't control how we feel, but we can choose how we act," she said, her voice steady, carrying the weight of newfound clarity. Tiffany nodded, her playful edge softened by sincerity. Alex exhaled, realizing that the path forward required honesty above all, honesty with each other, and with themselves. The day stretched ahead, each moment a subtle test of courage and heart. Decisions that would shape their lives were not made lightly. They talked, laughed, and argued softly, exploring the limits of their emotions and the depth of their commitment. In those hours, they discovered something vital. Love, in its truest form, demanded both bravery and grace. And even as the possibility of farewell lingered like a shadow, there was a fragile hope that honesty could carve a space for them to exist together, however unconventional it might be. By evening, the three of them had faced the truths that had been simmering beneath the surface. Sarah spoke first, her voice calm but firm. "We've all felt the fear, the doubt, but maybe that's the point. Love isn't safe, it's messy, and it's ours." Tiffany reached out, taking both Alex and Sarah's hands in hers, a gesture of connection that felt like a lifeline. Alex felt a warmth spread through him, a mixture of relief, love, and awe at the courage it took to embrace the uncertainty together. They talked long into the night, mapping the contours of their unconventional bond. Rules weren't imposed, but boundaries were respected. Each small compromise, each gesture of understanding, became a brick in the fragile foundation they were building. Sarah admitted her lingering insecurities, Tiffany shared her fear of losing herself, and Alex revealed his constant struggle to balance both hearts without breaking either. In those confessions, they found clarity, not perfection, but a path forward paved with honesty. As the night deepened, a quiet peace settled over them. They didn't know how the world would judge their love, or if their arrangement would endure the months or years ahead. But in that moment, under the soft glow of lamps and the muted hum of the city outside, they felt something undeniable. Love had no single form, and theirs was real, courageous, and transformative. And though they all understood the risks, they also knew that whatever happened next, their hearts had been irrevocably changed by this extraordinary connection. Morning arrived again, quiet and golden, as if the world itself had softened in respect for their journey. Alex, Sarah, and Tiffany sat together in companionable silence, each lost in thought yet tethered by an unspoken bond. They had chosen honesty, vulnerability, and each other. For now, for however long that would last. There was no certainty, no promise that life would stay this way, but in that moment, it didn't matter. The courage to love without limits had already transformed them. They lingered over coffee, laughter threading between pauses of reflection, small gestures carrying the weight of all they had endured. Sarah's eyes met Tiffany's, an understanding passing silently, free of jealousy but full of respect. Alex watched them both, a quiet awe settling in his chest. They had learned that love could be expansive, messy, and imperfect, yet still worth every risk. And in that acceptance, there was a fragile joy, a knowledge that even if hearts would someday part, the love they shared would leave an indelible mark on each of them. As they stepped out into the world, each carried a piece of the other, a reminder that courage and honesty could bend reality in unexpected ways. Their story was unconventional, uncertain, but alive, and it left them changed forever. The future remained unwritten, full of questions and possibilities, yet the lesson was clear. Love's power lies not in its ease, but in its bravery. And with that understanding, they walked forward, together, apart, or somewhere in between, hearts open to the unknown.